Hey everyone, welcome to the first episode of Anthony Joseph podcast, AJ podcast. And this episode, I made it specifically to enlighten you about the latest rules and regulation in the city. Today, I'm accompanied by my lawyer, Mr. Andree Saade, that I've been dealing with him for almost 18 months. And thank God and thank him, we've been having a successful rate of 100%. From all of the cases. And today he's here. He's going to be discussing with us all of the new stuff happening in the city that most of us, we don't know about. So first of all, Andree, thanks a lot for coming on the show.
Anthony, thank you very much for having me here.
Such a pleasure. And as much as you've been useful in my life, I would like to share you with my audience so people can be enlightened about everything happening in our city. First topic I wish to discuss it with you, it's mainly about real estate.
Yeah.
And many common cases happening, especially when it comes to the bounce checks.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's like I think they changed the law, let's say 3 months ago, but before that, whenever someone had a bounce check, immediately they will take it to the police station for them to register it, and then after that take it to the land department, where the land department will notify the tenant that they have 30 days to replace the check or pay the money however they want to pay it, or else the leasing will be void and they have to leave the apartment and pay the compensation.
Correct.
Nowadays they changed the law about the checks. So first of all, can you let us know what are the changes?
Okay, so basically, as you mentioned, Anthony, recently there has been lots of changes within the law, not only in relation to checks, but in general. So in the last 2 years, we have seen a huge changes in laws, basically new laws coming, and even very important laws that have been also amended, like the agency law and others. I mean, in terms of the check, also there has been, as you mentioned, a change in this one. Previously, the check has been used predominantly in the UAE as a coercive measure. So basically, say in a rent transaction, a tenant would provide 12 checks or 3 checks or whatever. And the landlord would use this in the event, as a guarantee for him, in the event that the tenant, for example, fails to pay any of the installments. They would go to the police, and if the check bounced, they go to the police and they file a criminal case. Obviously, if the tenant is put behind the bars, it will put a lot of pressure on him to settle,
to arrange the money,
to arrange the
from
money.
Friend,
Yeah.
from
exactly.
to borrow it,
exactly,
whatever
exactly.
They want. Yeah.
But I mean, nowadays the check is no longer. I mean, it's still in some instances it's still criminal. I mean, for example, if on purpose you forge your signature, or in any other instances, but it is more now a civil matter. So basically, what does that mean? So in case a check bounce, what you can do is go to the court and file for a payment order. And payment order is a expedited way to make a debtor pay his debt. So for example, so instead of going to the police, you can still use that check. You go to the court. And
civil court?
Yeah, civil court. So
okay.
You have to first send him a 5 days notice. You tell him you have to pay within 5 days. If he doesn't, then you file for the payment order. The payment order is generally quick. The judge will take a decision within 2-3 days, maximum 5 days, depending on the load. And once you have that judgment, you can start by enforcing it against the assets of the tenant, for example. So if he has an apartment, you can sell it in auction. If he has shares or a car, etc. So you can still use the check, but not in the same way of we used to do it previously.
So what you're telling me, once this is implemented, the court can freeze everything under the name of the tenant,
correct,
and then they will liquidate it in any way, like the auction, and then the person will get their money from that way.
100%.
Great. Let's say the tenant doesn't have anything under their name except a mobile phone.
Okay.
What can you do in that
I mean,
case?
you can start with the mobile phone, but no, but I mean, basically, you can still So the search that will be done when you get the enforcement process, a letter would be sent to the banks, to the central bank, to the land department, to the RTA, to the DED to check if they have checks. So if all these authorities come back and say, well, there's nothing, ultimately you can request a travel ban and potentially you can still ask for the person to be put in jail. But again, it's going to be a long shot, and so you can still get to putting the person behind the bars, but it's a longer process.
Can we know what will be the costing and the time length for all of this to happen? And I'm asking you, for example, to see, like, if I have a bounce check of 50,000 dirhams and pursuing all of this will cost me 100, 150, it's not even worth it. And maybe this is what these tenants will gamble on by saying it's so much hassle, the landlord will not do it, let me do it. So I'm just asking you to make a wider image and to see how we can avoid such thing.
Yeah, I mean, as you mentioned, Anthony, sometimes, the legal cost can be a burden, especially if the amount is not big. I mean, 50,000, it's not a big amount. The legal cost won't cost you that, I mean, you won't pay that much, but I mean, for the checks, I think from memory, it's like 5,000 dirham or so. And you need to know that the court costs are recoverable, the lawyer's costs are not. So depending how expensive is your lawyer. Mm-hmm. But if we're talking about a big amount, obviously, it would make perfect sense. So on that basis, I think before you get to the point where the check bounce and all that, I think at the onset of the transaction, it would be very important for the parties, at least to make you need to make a bare minimum of due diligence. I mean, if it's a commercial lease, obviously you need, and it's a company that you are renting out for, you need to get that, obviously, trade license, you need to check
passport copies of everyone involved
exactly.
in the transaction.
And I mean, I don't see why not, for example, they ask for the balance sheet or for the bank account of that company, just bank statement, just to see how much money, if they are solvent or not. I mean, if you are at the onset entering with someone who doesn't have the money, the risk obviously is quite high. So, I mean, this obviously is for individuals, at the same for the company. So it works for both. You need to do a proper due diligence on these two.
Or we can save all of this by just asking for one check of a rental, paying the full year in advance, and just save all of this trouble.
I mean, that's the ideal scenario. That's the ideal scenario. But also it depends. I mean, now the market is fantastic, but you've been here for ages.
For 10 years, I've seen all of the rents.
You've seen. So in 2012, 2013, 14, I mean, people were very happy to have 12 checks. Now the market's great, so And I mean, another suggestion maybe it's time to have a kind of a referral list or referral registry whereby you have like a rating for the landlords and tenants. I mean, it can easily be set up maybe with the land department, and it's somewhere where you can search if that person has credibility or not.
It's an amazing idea, and for the land department, if anyone is listening to this podcast, it's a great suggestion. It's like having a credit score where you can tell like this person, he can afford this property, he has been having multiple years of great records, so you should lease him. And same way goes for the landlords. Like if the landlord usually does his lease and never refund back the security deposit, when all of this sticks, so at least if you are signing a lease with this landlord, you can expect not to see your security deposit again. So I think it's an amazing idea.
I mean, I have many examples, but I mean, I have like one of the examples whereby the landlord, on the day he signed with the tenant, he sent the 12 months notice to his tenant. I mean,
this year it happened, not one case, it happened over 40, 50 times. Everyone was doing it.
Yeah, so on the day you signed, you sent a 12 months notice. So obviously, if you have that, that would be, for new coming tenants, maybe it might be a bit difficult to have the history, but for people who have been here for many years, you can at least ask their landlord, for example, if you are a landlord that you want to get into an agreement with a new tenant, you can ask his previous landlord to provide a recommendation letter, for example, and see if they are able to provide that. I mean, if they don't, I mean, it's obvious
Yeah,
that
that's
something.
the issue. Is like because like the tenants and the landlords are not connected. Most of the time, they are connected through an agent,
Correct.
and most of the time, once the agent signs the 2 3 copies, give them the keys, the access card. Mainly, they're not there anymore. So. Yeah, having, as you said, like a way where they can all rate each other, and it gives a great indication on what's coming. So just to recap it, if you are a landlord in Dubai and you want to secure yourself from the bounce check and you don't want to pursue it and you don't want to go through all of that chase, all what you need to do is ask for one check as an option number one, so you can save all of this. In the case that your tenants cannot do it, make sure to ask for a bank statement, because once you have the bank statement, it's showing the money.
Yeah.
And then later on, these checks are bouncing. It's a proof for yourself that you can use it later on, whether with the police or
Yeah.
with the court. So this is something extremely important. I emphasize on all of the landlords to start doing these methods, because it will save you a lot of headache and it will save you lots of money. I want to, speaking of tenants and leases, so now coming back for the eviction notice.
Yeah.
I'm a landlord.
Mm-hmm.
I have a tenant. I've already sent them 12 months notice. Then I sold the property to Mr. X. Mr. X has to file again for a 12 months notice. It's been happening in the past few months, which was extremely surprising for me. Because usually once you have the notice, 12 months you're out. So now they are recounting it from the latest landlord, that the latest landlord has to file again the 12 months notice.
Okay, on this one, Anthony, I think it's, I wouldn't say it's a gray area, but I think the practice previously was for, what you mentioned was the previous practice, in which that the landlord would serve 12 months notice. He would ask the tenant he wants to vacate the property, either for his personal use or if he wants to sell it. Yeah, that's the most common, Article 25. But more recently, and we've seen some new change in the court decisions whereby they are accepting the assignment of that. So if you are a previous landlord, you send, or the current landlord, and you serve the 12 months notice, and there's been a sale of that property within the terms of the 12 months notice, the new landlord, according to the current decisions of the rent committee, they are accepting that the 12 months notice continues. So there is an assignment
from the previous one.
From the previous one. And
it didn't happen in our case. I've did lots of secondary, and we all had to file again for a 12 months notice. Even in one case, I had the tenant like abusing the situation by telling us he wants the full rent and he wants another 15% compensation to leave the apartment, or he's gonna stay another year. And actually he put us on the spot where we had no
how
other
about you
option.
transfer the property into his name? That would be easy.
Yeah, I mean, like I remember we paid him 280, which was the rent, and we paid him, I don't know, another
when did this happen, if I can ask?
Second week of Jan.
Okay, that's quite recent. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, because I mean, I'm talking about precedents that in the months of September or so, this is where, and this is where I'm saying it's, okay, so there's something that we need to know about the courts in general and the system in the UAE. So basically it's a civil jurisdiction law, yeah? Meaning that as opposed to the common law, and I know that there are a lot of expats here from the UK or Australia. The decisions of a higher court in the civil jurisdiction law is not binding. So if you have previously, so in the common law, if you have a decision from a higher court, now if a new court or a lower court is deciding on a matter that has similarity of facts to the previous one, they have to abide by the decision of the previous precedent. However, in the civil courts, every time the court look into a decision, they look at as afresh. So the decision of higher court is persuasive, but it's not binding. So that's the difference. That's why even if you have very similar cases, you can see before the courts in the UAE that sometimes the outcome can be different. So that's why I'm saying, to go back to your point that you said that in your case it was not assigned and the court said that you have to serve a new 12 months notice. Yeah. Maybe one court could take this decision, but a different chamber could decide differently.
You know, it's kind of a bit of confusing. Like, we have so many courts. We have civil, we have criminal, we have the IFC, we have ADGM, and what else? We have 5-6 courts.
Okay, I mean, as you know, the UAE is a federal country. Yeah, so you have seven emirates. So you have the laws that at a federal law that is applicable across the entire emirates. So that would be like as you mentioned, criminal law, the civil code, the civil transaction. Yeah, these are considered as federal laws. And then on a local level, you have some local laws. For example, the real estate laws. Yeah, the rent law. These are done at the local. So Dubai have one, Abu Dhabi has one, Ras Al Khaimah, etc. So each of them, they have their own.
And you're telling me it differs from a state to another?
It can differ. Yeah, it can differ. Definitely, it can differ. I mean, there are lots of similarities, but yeah, they can differ. And
let's simplify it, if we can do that.
Yeah.
What's the difference between civil and criminal? First of all, the easiest question, and most people don't know it, including myself. To be fair, I know that the difference in the amount can be moved to a criminal, but
no, it's not about the amount. It can be in billions of dirhams, and in civil, and it can be 1 dirham, and it can be in the criminal. So the only difference is, so you have the civil code. Civil code is the civil laws and the criminal laws. Yeah. So if an act that you do falls under the criminal law, this is when you go to the criminal court. So for example, if they are theft, or breach of trust, or murder, for example. So this is where you go, or previously bounce check. Previously the checks were under the criminal code. That's why you go to the police.
It got moved to civil recently.
Correct. Yeah. And currently, as opposed to the civil matters, for example, if you're talking about the employment law between employer-employee, that's civil code. Commercial transaction, so you sold a car, they didn't pay you, etc. Shareholder dispute, like you have a company, you have corporate, exactly. This is where you go. And okay, I don't want to overcomplicate it, but even under the civil, it has different courts. So you have the employment for the relation between the employer and employee problems. You have the commercial for commercial disputes. You have the civil for the civil disputes.
So you're not going to complicate it. It's complicated already. Don't worry about it.
And add to that. Okay, I mean, just a note. And you mentioned the DIFC and the ADGM and the importance about this and the interplay, actually, between these courts and the UAE courts. The DIFC and the ADGM, they apply the common law. Yeah? So they are considered as UAE law, but as opposed to the UAE courts that apply the civil law, the DIFC and the DGM apply their own laws.
British laws, right?
Say again?
It's following the British laws.
Yes.
Okay.
If you want,
I mean, like the IFC, you can consider it as its own separate entity. And knowing people inside, they always tell me, like, whatever laws are implemented in the city, in here it differs. There is so many stuff in here, like, it's totally different.
They have different laws.
They even told me, like, if you do a handshake over there, that's a contract.
I mean, a handshake is everywhere as a contract.
No, but they said in the IFC specifically, if you do the handshake, means like it's the same as you have signed the contract.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know about this one, but 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 even if you are not based in the DIFC, the parties can choose to go before the DIFC. So this is an option left. So if the parties, even if you are not, so the DIFC laws basically are applicable within the entities that are at the DIFC. Yeah. However, now if the parties approve, and this is something quite important when you are drafting the agreement, and to choose the proper jurisdiction that you want. Yeah. And it all depends on many factors, but one of them is, for example, where are the assets of the opponent party? So if the assets of the opponent party are within the DIFC, you can choose the DIFC courts to look into this decision. Or, for example, if the assets of that entity or other entity are in the UK, maybe you can choose also the DIFC because it's easier to enforce a decision of the DIFC in the UK. As opposed to if the assets of the person or opponent party are onshore, yeah, or in the UAE, it would be better to choose Abu Dhabi courts or Dubai courts.
Right, Andree, let's go to a different topic. I want to speak about, how to say it, hate speech,
Yeah.
offending words,
Yeah.
cursing, all of the stuff. Now, in the world, it's very normal to send someone an FU or to do such thing. And here in the city, it's a total different game.
Yeah.
So first of all, can you explain to us the law,
Yeah.
how it goes, and then what will be the cases of violation, what
Yeah.
can happen to someone?
Okay, I think that's quite important topic, Anthony, and it's I think that's the legislator, when they put that law, it's a policy of the country. So the UAE wanted to put themselves as a model of tolerance. I mean, although the law is called anti-hatred law, but it has been put in place as a model for tolerance. So basically, the UAE wanted to show everyone else in the world that a country can be, or people can live within the same country and have tolerance to each other. And that's why the fines and the punishment under that law are quite severe. So, and that law covers many aspects. So, if you attack my race, color, religion, gender, etc., you are subject to this one. And there's a reason why they put it, as I said, because the UAE and Dubai in particular, I mean, look into your working space. At least there are 20 nationalities working, maybe more, maybe 7. Yeah. I worked in a big law. I think we were at one stage 100 different nationalities. So it's not easy to be in such an environment, and and people coming from different backgrounds, all that. So that's why I think it was a strong message from the legislator that people have to live together in harmony. Now, what you mentioned is what could be considered in different countries as acceptable when people send messages or WhatsApp and they insult each other, say F word or that. Here, if you receive such a thing, obviously this can be considered, I mean, that can be a slander, insult under the penal code. In addition to that, if they mention anything under, like when they send you the message because they mentioned your nationality, yeah, or they mentioned your race, that would be even worse. And the police and the public prosecutors here are dealing with it, and the criminal courts, obviously, in a very, very strong way. And as I said, it's a message it's not just to prevent people from doing it, but also to create a more harmonious environment.
What's the penalty for it?
It can, the fines can get into millions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Starting?
I don't know the minimum, but I think 100,000 or so, and gets into million.
Okay.
Yeah. And imprisonment from 6 months up to, it can get to 5 years.
So imprisonment plus payment?
It can be either fine,
okay,
or imprisonment, or both,
okay,
or it can be extradition. I mean, it can go that far.
To go both, maybe it has to be a nice paragraph. To go that
drafted on ChatGPT.
Andree, Does it have to be written for a proof, or you can say, I got a phone call from this person and he said, let's say, 1, 2, 3. How can someone prove this? Does he have to go back to their operator? For example, let's say they're using Etisalat. They need to call Etisalat and say, I got a phone call 5 minutes ago and I need a recording. Can this be doable?
I mean, it all depends. In general, in law, it's all about proofs. Yeah.
Okay.
So if you have if you don't have a proof or you don't have the right, it's the same thing. So you need to have a proof. So obviously it would be very difficult. It's very difficult when it's verbal, yeah, when someone's sending, because it will be your word against.
He said.
Yeah. And it's quite difficult to get the data for, like, it's difficult to go, for example, to Etisalat and say, give me. It's because not anyone can have access to this. It can only be done through the public prosecutor. And only the public prosecutor can ask for these data, and they don't release it usually. So that's why if it's done verbally, it's quite difficult. Obviously, if you have a text or so, I mean, sometimes what they do, you know, that they have what they call phantom mode. Phantom mode. So, like, for example, you sent on Instagram, WhatsApp, or whatever, it stays. I mean, the minute you read it vanishes.
The one times.
One time, yeah.
So also, there is disappearing messages.
Disappearing message,
in 24 hours.
So in this case, if you can take a screenshot, that would be the best way of doing it to keep proof of it.
Okay, but you encourage anyone going through that they should report it immediately, because the government, the country, the city are taking this very seriously.
Yeah, definitely,
right?
definitely.
Right.
And sometimes it can get really severe. I mean, sometimes it can get one time, but I mean, I know for a fact from clients that they receive these messages in different contexts. It's not just about insulting someone, but also it can get in employer-employee harassment and all this. So definitely, it needs lots of courage sometimes to do it, but yeah, you need to report it.
Andree, for someone looking to pursue a career in the law enforcement, like what do you feel will be the right criteria in the coming years? Like now we're seeing with all of the technology, AI stuff, scams, it's becoming crazy. What would you advise someone to go into which category of the law?
Very interesting question, Anthony. And frankly, this has been there have been lots of debates on how much the AI is gonna take the place of lawyers. But I think it's still early on to see that lawyers will be overtaken by AI. So on that basis, if anyone is considering a career in law, definitely I think there are still lots of opportunity. And one of them would be, for example, AI itself. Yeah. Now you have the law of the space. As you know, for example, the UAE has a big program for space. Not only the UAE, I mean, many countries. And this is a big thing that is happening now. Entertainment law, also, it's becoming big. When we say entertainment law, it's not just music, but I mean, this falls also, like, for example, e-gaming, which also a huge industry now. We know Saudi, for example, they are investing a lot in e-gaming. Even here, they are doing that. So definitely, law is here to stay for a while before we can see this industry being replaced by a machine or anything like that. So if someone is considering, definitely, I would obviously move away from the traditional law. Like we will continue to have the corporate law, again.
Like the divorce case.
The divorce will be there forever. Yeah, but I would move away from the like corporate law, criminal law, although people will still need them. But I think the competition is quite high. You need to distinguish yourself nowadays, especially for new generation that they are coming now. They really need to choose properly what they want. And frankly, I would also suggest and recommend them they follow their passion. So if you're a musician and you know how to play drums, do like law and entertainment law So you can combine these two. So you'll have the technical part and you'll have the legal part. And you'll be in high demand, definitely.
I have no interest of becoming a lawyer. I want to ask you a question.
Yet.
It's just like if I ask the same question to three different lawyers, I
Yeah.
will get three different answers. And they're not even close to
But
each other.
you know what they say, you have two lawyers in a room, you have three opinions.
Yeah.
So yeah, with two lawyers, you have three opinions. So with three lawyers, it's even.
It's gonna be 6. So, and I was lucky to end up on your lap where you actually saved me from all of the
Thank you,
cases
Anthony.
that was going through
Appreciate
all of
that.
my clients, and thank God we finished all of this. So, my question is, today, if I wanna know the law by myself,
Yeah.
I wanna read it, I wanna
Yeah.
spend hours on it.
Yeah.
Where can I find the laws? I don't want to see it on Loving Dubai. I don't want to see it on the Arabian Business or the Gulf News or all of this. I need to follow the special entity which is in charge of this
Yeah.
and get the right information from them.
Yeah.
How can I do it?
Okay, you have several sources, which basically we use as well. I don't know if you saw recently, Sheikh Mohammed, he launched a portal whereby all the laws of the UAE are there. Yeah, so basically you
Anyone can has access to it.
anyone can have. I
Okay.
can send you the link if you want.
Please, and we're gonna put it down in the description for anyone that has any questions or wanna go
Exactly.
through it.
So you
check it
can
out.
go and you can find the laws, and I mean it will be difficult to find. You need to do some search. Yeah, it's not obvious where you find the law because obviously, for example, if you're looking for the civil code, yeah, you have to go under, for example, the Ministry of Justice. This is where you find it. If you're looking for something in agriculture, you need to go under the ministry. So these are the open sources one. You have the courts. Also, the courts, they have their own websites. I mean, usually this is, I don't know how much it's open to public. Obviously, for lawyers, you have access to it. For law firms, you can register and you can, on this, you can get the laws and you can get the court precedents. And also you have
There is no book or digital book or something.
Or
where we can
you
just
have
spend it
softwares.
on.
I mean, I don't want to do a publicity here, but you have, for example, Saade Lex. It's very interesting software that you can purchase, and I mean, we use it, and you have all the laws. It's updated regularly, and all that. Fantastic one. You have the others like LexisNexis, it's in English, and all this. So you have both. You have the open sources where you can go and check online. And frankly, you need to be careful with what they. I mean, you mentioned some sites, but obviously, I mean, when you are looking at the law, you need to ensure the source of that law. Because it gets amended. Yeah, so you need to know that you are looking at the last version of that law, last amendments.
Yeah, it's just like I don't have any issues following the news articles
Yeah.
and stuff. But again, the way stuff are being drafted over there, it varies from a topic to another.
Correct.
So one day you can read, for example, this is allowed, and another day it says it's not allowed, and it's kind of very confusing for us to know what to follow. Like for example, until date, I couldn't get an answer of what are the new updates of the Golden Visa. It's amazing. You guys said that we have waived the 1 million dirham in order for you to apply for it. Then you're saying a property has to be ready of 50% completed. If it's ready of 50% completed, means you have paid from it at least 30-40%. So you have paid the 1 million. Some people will tell you if you're looking for a 10 years visa, you are locked. That property is locked for 10 years. In the case that you want to sell it, you will lose your visa immediately. So until today, we couldn't get the actual answer because everyone has a different answer. Today, as a civilian, where can I go, on what website or what entity, and say, hi, I would like to know the actual more information about this?
Okay, I mean, you touch on a very important point, Anthony. So, yeah, sometimes you have the laws, but also sometimes we have the law would say that there'll be directives that will be issued, and the directives will be issued at the level maybe of the ministry or at the land department level, etc. Yeah, so it doesn't mean that the law can cover everything. Usually the laws are quite general. I mean, you cannot go into the details of every single point. But for example, in terms of visas, who can issue them, it would be, for example, the immigration, who later on would issue directives on who can get the 10 years visa, etc. And this is where it doesn't, so it won't be issued at the same time where the law it will be. I mean, sometimes I'll give you an example.
There will be announcement, and then there will be the execution.
Correct.
Yeah, it always happens.
So sometimes it takes a year, and they have to get that directive. So, I mean, meanwhile, obviously, you need to check with the ministry. It depends on the topic that you're looking at, or the immigration, etc., to get the right answer. If you are not able to find it in the laws.
We have lots of questions, and again, now these questions are not for lawyers; they are for auditors.
Yeah.
Okay, and it's super confusing now coming with the corporate tax.
Yeah.
Corporate tax was announced last year. Then we got that starting June 2023 to start registering.
Correct.
Some company did, some company didn't.
Yes.
Now, if I bring 5 audit companies, I will have 25 answers. One guy will tell me you should register. The other guy will tell me, no, you register in 2024. It's after 6 months. Another guy will tell me, let me check for you. And I don't have any clear answer. I register just to be on the safe side, not knowing if I have to or not, but we did it. And that's what I'm telling you. We are facing issues of getting the right actual information passed to us to know how to act on it.
Yeah.
Let me go back to you remember when they started the AML?
Yeah.
That we have to do all. For example, what do you have to do? We have to do KYCs. Amazing. We did KYCs. Then after that, no, you need to get the source of the funds.
Yeah.
We're just brokers. We're not lawyers. We're not solicitors. How can I get the source of fund if my client is coming from Germany and doing a bank transfer? How can I contact his bank and tell this amount inside of the bank, where did it come from? So it was always a vague area until eventually we have hired people to be doing this. And between you and me, I still don't know until today if they are doing the perfect job or not. Because I don't know the law.
Yeah.
I just hear about it, that we need to do 1, 2, 3, but we don't have a proper draft where we know, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, up until 10. You know what I mean? This is what I'm trying to tell you. We need to get the information, which is the law, which is coming straight away from the government, not from a guy who's gonna do a work for me for 20,000 dirhams. I need to get it from the main source.
Yeah. I mean, I understand your frustration, but again, Anthony, we are in a society and in a jurisdiction that is quite dynamic, and as we said, lots of law are coming into effect. You mentioned a few of them, which is for example, the tax and others. So on that basis, you also answered the question. I think you need to get to the professionals in order to give you this. Now, in terms of the laws, as I mentioned, the laws are there. Sometimes even for the tax. So the tax, when it was issued, there was also directives that followed. Yeah. So sometimes we need to be patient, maybe a little bit.
Of course.
Until
we get fined.
Until we
get fined. Patient until we get the fine.
And then you come to the lawyer to ask him to remove the fine.
So what you're saying, in order for us to get the right sources of information of the laws, it's gonna either be the ministry or there's few websites which are gonna be sharing with us where we can get the concrete information.
Correct.
Okay.
So these are the most updated. As I mentioned, the one that Sheikh Mohammed announced recently on his on Twitter. Yeah, I can share with you. And and also they are specialized companies. They do softwares, and also I mentioned a few of them. So also I'm more than happy to share with you the names of these companies. And these companies are specialized in updating the law. And by updating the law, so there is an official gazette. Official gazette is where the government publish the laws. So once they are published in the official gazette, this is when they load it. So because you see on websites sometimes drafts, etc. These are not laws. It has to be published in the official gazette, and it says effective that date, March 2024. This law will enter into effect. This is when you have to rely on it.
I'm gonna go through it one by one. And what I'm gonna do for any section that I don't understand, I'm gonna put a mark on it. I'm gonna invite you again to come to the podcast, but we're gonna be discussing this one by one. Is that okay with you?
It would be more than a pleasure for me.
Amazing. I will end this episode with my final question, which is also a very big worry to all of the corporate company, everything dealing in here. Just like the fines that are coming from the AML for not providing the full document. Can you give us an example of big corporate that happened in the city, and maybe if it was like a minor issue that ended up to becoming a major issue, and how can all of the business owners avoid these kind of mistakes? I mean, you have thousands and thousands of cases, but just like if you remember one.
Yeah. I mean, obviously now the regulation is quite strict in that some industries like real estate companies, auditors, lawyers, and others have to abide by laws of the Ministry of Economy. So these companies have, for example, to register with the MLGO, they have to do proper KYC. They have to, and by proper KYC, you need to have the relevant softwares whereby you are able to do background checks about the persons that you are dealing with.
That is the word check website that we use this for all. So you just like put the name of the person, and if that person has ever been flagged, it will give you a notice, or it says no record found.
Correct. I mean, there are different categories. You have the PAP if it's politically exposed, or if they are bad media, and depending on the category under which they fall under, you have to do enhanced KYC. So I mean, obviously, in order to avoid being fined, you need to have these. And as a matter of fact, the Ministry of Economy is scrutinizing lots of companies, and we're seeing a lot of companies being fined for different reasons, and sometimes for not being able to do proper KYC, not doing proper background check about people, or if they are politically exposed, they haven't digged further about those people. So that's quite important, and I mean, but this is at the same time comforting because it means that the market is more mature, and it's good for investors to be able to operate in a place where they feel safe and dealing with companies that are doing proper governance.
I agree. So it has been, first of all, when it came, we thought it's going to be too hard to be dealing deals. And like, for example, I was even shy to ask someone, like, what's the source of the fund? Especially if he's elderly. I'm like, who am I to ask this person? But with time, it's just
I think here it's kind of, sometimes it's difficult to ask this question, but I mean, this question is very legitimate.
I keep it very simple.
Everywhere else in the world.
This is the requirement from the land department and from the government for you to purchase a unit. When it comes to me, I have zero interest knowing anything about you except doing the deal. But this is the requirement. Therefore, we have to do it, or else we cannot do it. So it's all up to you. I make sure that the client knows the paperwork at least the first hour.
And frankly, it's not worth taking any risks when it comes to the source of funds, or I mean, irrespective of in which industry you are, unless you are 100% sure that the money that you're getting is clean and from proper sources, it's not.
And the way they have done it for real estate, it's becoming tighter. Like now, the only cash you can pay is up to 40 or 45,000 dirhams maximum. That's what the developer are accepting.
Correct.
The law says 55,000, but the developers will accept 45,000 cash. Everything else has to be through a credit card, wire transfer, or a check. So the money is coming from the bank, and definitely the bank has done the due diligence of the source of the money, so which is save us a lot.
Yeah, definitely. That's I mean, that's the best way to do it. That's the
Andree,
best practice.
thanks a lot for this
Anthony, thank you.
amazing information. I'm sure the audience will be loving to hear it. And I'm going to take the links from you to have a look of the laws. I'm going to study it. I'm going to read it, prepare for it. And definitely within 2-3 weeks, we're going to have Andree back on the show to be answering all of this. And if you guys have any questions for Andree, feel free to drop it down in the comment section. And I'm going to make sure on the next episode, we're going to be answering all of your questions. If you like this episode, you would like us to grow with the channel, all what you need to do is subscribe and notify the bell. Thanks a lot for watching this. See you in the next one.